Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to the month ahead astrology reading. Make sure you check your sun, moon, and rising signs for a comprehensive view of the month. Additionally, I would recommend watching the tarot reading of the month ahead to get a different perspective. While you will know the astrology in advance through this session, I will also send you a reminder when the astrological events are near. All you have to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as the events occur through my community page. I occasionally post behind the scenes, meditation guidance, quizzes, and polls, which you can check out for yourself. And it goes without saying that you will be notified when new videos are out, such as other zodiac readings and pick a card tarot readings as well. If you prefer to cut down the guesswork about your month ahead, you can always connect with me via Etsy to get a personalized week-by-week month ahead tarot reading paired with the general astrology. Enough about me, let's talk about you. So let's talk the overview of September. Okay, I'm going to divide this into separate storylines. There are a couple of things happening in parallel, and at some points in time, different things are being activated. So just the general themes going on here. Let's talk about the first one. Is that in the month of September, there are going to be lots of changes on the personal level. And that's because we have Mercury and Venus changing direction. Both of them are going to go direct. And whenever that happens, on especially the personal planets of, the Venus, Mercury, even Mars, we experience lots of shifts in our own mindset and how we go about life. Okay, so on a personal level, lots of changes. But apart from that, we also have Jupiter going retrograde on the same day that Venus goes direct. And that's interesting because it's sort of like both of them are moving in parallel, but they're moving in opposite directions. So they kind of see each other, but they can't really meet at this point. So when Jupiter was active, Venus was not, and now Venus is active, so Jupiter is not. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see. But apart from that, we also have Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in retrograde. So everything is retrograde for like the first few days of the month, and then slowly one by one things start going direct. That is Mercury and Venus. So whenever the bigger planets are retrograde, they're retrograde for a longer time compared to Mercury, let's say. So whatever changes occur on that level, we are more susceptible to absorbing because we don't quite understand it, or it's not yet conscious and it's kind of happening in the background, or this is like involuntary changes that we were not initiating but is introduced through the universe. Okay, so it's sort of a time where the universe is speaking louder than we are able to speak. Okay, so there will be less resistance as a result of this. That's the plus side. We are able to accept the guidance and the intuitive nudges much more easily. And because Mercury, Venus are direct, we are able to kind of incorporate that in a personal level. For example, if you feel like your belief system is not doing you any favors, or that the structures you have in your life are not working in your favor, then there is this opportunity to shift those things. But that initial feeling is going to be the universe speaking. That's the trigger that comes from your soul, from your subconscious, whatever. So yes, there will be changes in beliefs, priorities, and mindsets with Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury changing directions. The next story that's happening is that our focus this month is shifting when the sun is moving from Virgo season into Libra season. So when the sun is in Virgo, there's also a lot of earth activities, earth trines, conjunctions, movements, and so on, right? So there's a lot of earthly matters which are going to happen, and it's going to be a dynamic phase because, again, Mercury is in an earth sign in Virgo, and it changes direction, which changes, again, the flow of things. When the sun moves into Libra, we're going to talk more about relationships and communication, what commitment means or partnership means, and how to find equality and balance and all of that. And this is going to be a more rejuvenating phase because Venus is out of shadow by the time, or at least, it is really, really getting out of shadow almost. So it's going to be, whenever a planet comes out of retrograde phase, basically it is essentially rested and rejuvenated. So it's kind of gaining power through the post-shadow phase, and then it's going to fully glow in its eminence, basically, right? So in Libra season, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to come into full strength. So this is going to be rewarding, rejuvenating, not only for relationships, but also financial matters. Another theme to talk about is that there are 6 trines this month. All of them are Earth, which is awesome, which means we have physical blessings, material blessings. And we have 1 conjunction, also Earth, which means there is some emphasis days, which we'll talk about when we get into it. We do have 2 squares, and both of them have Venus involved in it. Okay, so the first one is going to be a direct Venus squaring with Jupiter, who's retrograde. And this is going to be an interesting one because, like I mentioned, going parallel but in opposite direction. And there can be this ideology that we adopt around this time that maybe we and our goals are not able to meet, or our value system, our belief system, they are not able to meet. Okay, so if we move with that assumption, it's not going to do us any favors. It can just seem like we're doing a lot of things but we're going nowhere. That's what it can seem like. But that does not have to be that way. Okay, now keep in mind, Venus in this square is going to be in shadow phase, and that is again indicating that Venus is not yet in full power, so it can't really help Jupiter with much, or it can't really do anything. It can't share the experience as such. It's just going about in its own lane. And Jupiter is in retrograde, so it's kind of in that asleep state, so it's not able to exert itself fully around this time either. So with that, if you mix in the square, the illusion or the assumption that we don't have power, or that we still have a lot of other things to be taken care of before we start moving towards our goals, that can be quite strong. But the plus side is, if we remove that assumption, that initial thing, and just go with things with an open mind, an open heart, and just give it a shot, it's not going to be this way. It is actually quite blissful. It can help you recognize what you're really looking for in life and all of that. We'll get into the actual effects more as I talk about your zodiac. Next, the other square is also with Venus direct, but this square, she's out of shadow. Okay, she's going to square with Uranus. And what's interesting is Uranus is going to be retrograde, right? So all this month of August and even July, Venus was squaring with Uranus. In the first phase, she was going into shadow, so she was losing strength. So Uranus was kind of winning this square, let's say. In the second month, in August, Venus was fully in retrograde, so she was not in the mood to contest with Uranus's whims and fancies. Okay, so again, Uranus wins that. This would be the first time where Venus is stronger and Uranus is kind of like, okay, well, I've made whatever I needed to make as a change, and what do you have to say? And what's even more interesting is that Venus also rules Taurus, where Uranus is sitting. So she can really dictate how we're going to take advantage of the changes that have already happened, the breakthroughs we have made, the realizations that have occurred in the months of July and September. Venus is now going to put that into context, put a more pleasant spin to it. Like, it doesn't have to be so drastic. We can, take it one step at a time and make the best of it. So all in all, it seems a little optimistic. And we also have an opposition. That's the only opposition. So one opposition, one conjunction. In opposition, we have Virgo again being involved, but here we're going to learn to balance the emotion side of it. So it's nice that we don't have a completely practical and logical month, which generally happens when we have so much Virgo and Libra presence, but we also have a little bit of emotion mixed in there, so we're able to kind of come back to center. Okay, fourth storyline, let's talk about the moon phases. We have a new moon in Virgo along with Mercury going direct. That's going to be on the 15th. And we also have a full moon in Libra on the 29th. And this is going to be the date that Venus squares with Uranus. So both days we have some important events occurring. So these lunar phases are not going to be boring, to say the least. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into your zodiac. But in essence, new moons talk about new potentials and new beginnings. Meanwhile, full moons talk about completion of a cycle or pivoting into a new direction. Quite fateful. There can be external help and triggers that kind of show us and point where we should be headed next, basically. Now, the fifth storyline is that eclipse is coming about very soon. So September is sort of a drum roll phase. And at first, we might not feel it too much because we're kind of busy with the whole slumber of all the planets being retro. Then on the 4th, Venus goes direct and so on and so forth. So slowly we start waking up and getting into the mode of realizing the fateful changes that the eclipses are going to bring. Because those fated changes, they are, again, universally directed. And because so many of these outer planets are retrograde, we are, like I mentioned, we don't have that much resistance. We're more accepting of what's coming in. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse season in October, and we're starting to see what it could be about. Okay? All right, let's start with your specific reading. So Capricorns, let's first talk about all the planets that are changing direction this month, because that's one of the major things that's happening. On the 4th, we have Jupiter in Taurus going retrograde. That is a fellow Earth sign. It falls in your 5th house of enjoyment, dating, romance, creativity, children, as well as any other form of self-expression. And the same day, we have Venus in the sign of Leo going direct. Now, Venus has been in Leo for quite some time, and that has been targeting your 8th house of shared resources, your fears, insecurities, shadow self, transformation, your psyche, and your subconscious. So this could have been something that you are dealing with on a deeper level, on a more psychological level as well. And essentially it is trying to unleash the deeper aspects of you, which is more creative and, how to have fun more. How can you let yourself loose, relax, enjoy, all of these types of topics. What do you exactly enjoy, and so on. So in July and August, you could have felt most of this energy, but it was retrograde as well, so there were a lot of things to work through behind the scenes. And now finally that on the 4th, it's turning direct. You're much more clear about who you are, who you want to be, and how you can get to those goals. Now, because Jupiter is going retrograde, this can be sort of a feeling of what do I believe in my everyday reality? What do I believe about joy, fun, and creativity that holds me back from experiencing the greatest forms of fulfillment? Are you, for example, thinking very far in the future or thinking of the past a lot? In that case, you're missing out on the present. Now, because Taurus is all about the present moment and it does not move very fast, it does not philosophize, basically thinking of the past or the future. It's just doing what is right here, right in front of it, and that's what it cares about. So Jupiter being the planet of the belief system and your philosophy, the sense of reality that you have in life, there can be specific questions that you encounter throughout this Jupiter retrograde cycle that just helps you recognize a deeper aspect of you. This can also indicate that you find more joy with religion or spirituality, and any other topics or any other inclinations that you have that help you connect to a sense of purpose and fulfillment as well. Retrograde planets have this, surrendering type of quality, or rather an accepting quality. So receiving help is okay, but maybe pushing forward beyond your, general capacity might not be the best idea unless you feel so intuitively. And retrograde planets have a heightened sense of intuition. Sometimes they have this sort of inexplicable pull. You can't ignore that pull that you feel, and even if logically it may not make sense, once you complete a specific path, you might think quite differently about that first instinct. For example, you might logically or practically feel as though you should not start a specific project or should not enroll in a class that you enjoy, but then you can't help but enroll in that class. Let's say, okay, you register and it's something you enjoy, it's quite exciting, even if it doesn't make practical sense for you in the moment. But as you go through it, you see that it opens up new channels of connecting with others and finding and cultivating even more joy in your everyday reality. So things like that are going to be quite apparent, and synchronistic events as well can be pegged onto these retrograde planets, especially Jupiter. All right, another planet that goes actually direct is Mercury, and that's on the 15th. Mercury connects with communication, short distance travels, the mind, therefore the thoughts, and also any type of documentation work. And he's also in the sign of Virgo, and that is a fellow earth sign. So there's kind of a grand trine that's happening here, a Taurus, your zodiac, Capricorn, as well as Virgo. So now Virgo falls in that 9th house of yours, which deals with publishing, long distance travel, so long distance communication, such as with foreign lands and foreign cultures. It can be that you are having high level discussions, and you might be contemplating the bigger topics of life, like who am I in this grand canvas of the universe? How do I connect with universe? What do I think about reality? And so on. There could have been certain documentation you were involved in the past month or 3 weeks. And this would be the point where things will start picking up or moving forward. Now, the first half of September is still a really good phase to revise, research, and kind of rethink your ideologies or the, any physical documentation procedures that's going on, because the more you do the research, the better you're going to be in a position to take most advantage of any opportunities that show up 15th onwards. Now, because all of these are, like I mentioned, it's an Earth grand trine, which indicates that there's going to be more, tangible results, or you can take more tangible actions. Opportunities are going to be more apparent rather than intuitive or emotional. Which has its own time, right? But right now we're talking about the more physical aspects of things. And throughout all of these planets changing direction, the sun is in Virgo as well. So our focus as a collective is in the Virgo parts of our charts. And that for you falls in that 9th house. So you might be looking at what rituals are you cultivating in your everyday life? What's your lifestyle? How do you want to upgrade your living conditions? Or for the people that you care about and you're coming off service to, how can you improve the quality of the service you're providing? Or how are you caring for your near and dear ones? Now let's talk about some other Earth trines. There are so many trines this month, and I'm loving it. So we have Mercury trining with Jupiter twice this month. Once is on the 4th, and both the planets are retrograde at this time, and the Sun is as well in another Earth sign, which is Virgo, right? So now Virgo and Taurus, let's talk about these houses specifically. That would be your 5th house and your 9th house. This can talk about you finding some opportunities or blessings that come almost synchronistically, like you are not expecting it, or it is coming from a source that you had applied for before, but you didn't hear back, and now would be a come back type of phase. Or this can also be indicating on a more internal level that you are finding more joy and fulfillment around this point in time. And you might be parallelly thinking about what brings you more joy, what cultivates more sensuality and romance into your everyday life, whether or not it is channeled towards another person. How are you enjoying this life story that you're creating for yourself? Now, the other time that Mercury trines with Jupiter is on the 25th, and this one is quite different from the 4th because Mercury is no longer retrograde at this point, so it is quite clear about its sense of purpose and direction, and it's actually starting to enact the planning and the strategic part that Mercury is well known for. Also, this can be talking about getting lots of information through governmental sources or other institutions. If you are teaching, for example, the 9th house also governs teaching and mentorship, by the way, I forgot to mention that. But yes, you might be getting these breakthroughs and opportunities connected to these topics around this time. Also, another difference is that the sun now moves into Libra in this particular trine. So Libra then is connected to your 10th house of your profession, your status in life, how you're showing up in a public platform, also your goals and ambitions, how are you creating your legacy. So with the focus shifting from the 9th, the more philosophical type of house, into this 10th house of this is my goal, I'm going to go forward with that, and so on, it's just going to open up more opportunities for you in the trine that we experience on the 25th. What else? Now, this opportunity is likely going to bring you fulfillment and joy. There's some sort of satisfaction that comes in, as if your efforts have been paying off. Or this can be like a shift that you are creating internally. It kind of depends on when you're starting this journey, right? Like if you've not made any applications in the past, of course, you're not going to hear back from anybody in the past. But it does not mean that you can't start a new chapter around this time. It's just going to be more of an internal phase while the planets are retrograde, and then it just externalizes as it goes direct. Now, Jupiter in retrograde can also symbolize that certain mentors or mentor figures from your past come back up and or come back around, and you're asking for advice from them, perhaps someone you were associated with while you were growing up, or this can talk about certain belief systems you've gathered, certain conditionings you've gathered while growing up as well, that can be leading you towards some opportunities in an external world. All right, now let's talk about another trine that Mercury makes, that is with Uranus. That is occurring on the 30th. And once again, it targets the same houses, the 5th and the 9th. And Uranus is also in Taurus and is retrograde, right? So the 5th house again is activated here with the Taurus energies, and Mercury blessing this is going to indicate that you're making a lot of sense of the changes that have happened in the past few months. So starting from, May, June, July, all of the unexpected developments that have happened in your life. What does that mean for you? Mercury is going to help you put that into context of everyday reality. For example, I remember that unexpected breakthrough or this conversation that I had with my neighbor or with my childhood best friend, and they were saying something like that, but I didn't really think of it too much. But with Mercury putting it in context, you might be like, but I should reach out to them again. Maybe, they can help me out with this particular thing that I'm dealing with, or they can help me with some information or put in a good word for me so that I can move forward towards the goals and the dreams that I have for myself. Okay. Now, this can also indicate, if you have children with Jupiter retrograde, Uranus retrograde, that they are going through a little bit of a re-evaluation process themselves. They might be, at a junction where they're looking at, what do I believe about the world? Maybe life is different at this time, that there have been certain changes and now have to really think about it, accept it, let it sink in, what just happened type of situation. Not necessarily in a negative way, it's just maybe it has been a busy time in the past couple months, and it's just a changing type of phase. But regardless, they're going to come out with something quite beneficial for them. It's going to help them mature and also understand life a little bit more individually rather than be influenced by every other person around them, and it just puts them in a stronger position moving forward. All right, now let's talk about the sun trines. The difference between the Mercury trines and the Sun trines is that the Sun just brings clarity wherever it goes. All right. Meanwhile, Mercury is more about the mental clarity and what can be done about it. Okay. All right. So the Sun trines with Jupiter as well as Uranus. The one with Jupiter is occurring on the 8th and Uranus is occurring on the 16th. Both of them are again targeting your fifth house of Taurus and your 9th house of philosophy, teaching, mentorship, higher education, and so on. So this again, because it's a trine, it talks about opportunities, breakthroughs, and blessings. So anything that has been pending regarding children, adoption, even because Uranus is representing people who are not from a traditional background or don't comply with the traditional structures of things, but nevertheless we are connected with them, right? So, and that being in the 5th house, it can talk about adoption or IVF or something like that. If you're trying those things out, there can be some blessings or good news that you might receive, or more context or information that you're like, oh yeah, that helps that I know this, or it helps that I can see this particular path. I'm going to go forward and see what I can make of that. Now, if you don't have children, this can still talk about publishing your creative work in some way, or you're thinking about publishing your stuff and you're looking at what options are available to you. This can also look at the romantic side of life, and what belief systems do you have, what type of relationships do you prefer, are you more of a traditional person? If so, what does that mean for you in the current reality? And the 9th house can then indicate that you are meeting more like-minded people, but they may come from different backgrounds or belief systems than you might be accustomed to. And that's what's changing. ideologies that you have, associated with for quite some time. But because the planets are retrograde, you're more in a ready state of accepting what is and just thinking about it before, dismissing something, or thinking about it before accepting something. All right. Now, another trine that the sun makes is not with Taurus anymore. It is with Capricorn, your zodiac, where Pluto is sitting. Now, Pluto is retrograde at this time, and this is occurring on the 21st. So this is going to look at how your belief systems are affecting you individually, or, you might be changing as a teacher or a mentor figure. Perhaps you're growing in experience or maturity in some way, and you are utilizing those changes in your everyday reality. For example, let's say you're hitting a certain age and you feel like, okay, that's nice. I've gathered so much knowledge and wisdom so far. I've grown so much. I've experienced so much, and it has made me the person that I am today. And I would like my everyday reality, surroundings, the way I dress, the way I speak, the walk, and what diet I have, the exercises I have, all those things need to mature with me as well. So it's sort of like you and your life getting on the same page around this time. Now, Pluto retrograde can mean that the changes that you are making are coming from your willingness or from an internal need or a drive to make those changes, rather than something that is enforced upon you from the outside in. Because it's a trine, it is a favorable aspect. It helps upgrade your life in some way. It can even indicate that you're getting some type of promotion perhaps, or some other job opportunity, some other institution you're enrolling in that just helps you upgrade your life in general. For example, going for another higher education can help you be eligible for some other job opportunities that you're more interested in. Nevertheless, you are still looking at what your personal goals and ambitions are at this time, and are you on track to achieve them? And if not, then what could be changed in order to get there? You might have a little bit of trouble early on of determining what exactly holds you back, but all throughout this month, there's so much, benefits that's coming in that you are eventually, by the 21st, you're going to come about to some type of conclusion. All right, now let's talk about this conjunction we have between the Sun and Mercury. Mercury is retrograde at this point in time. This is occurring on the 6th. Like I mentioned, the Sun brings clarity wherever it goes. So when it touches Mercury retrograde, the fogginess or the absent-mindedness, any aloofness or mistakes that were being made prior to this point, that is going to get more rectified. For example, you might have, if you've made certain documentations or sent certain emails, there could be some mistakes in those things, or, it came back and it didn't deliver to the correct address or something like that. That comes back around, and you know what went wrong on the 6th, so you can rectify that and move forward with it. It can also talk about if you're researching, where it can be a research proposal, of course, but it can also be like you're looking at what country to go to, or what language do you want to learn, what higher education you want to enroll in, what type of mentor are you, things like that. This can indicate you have a lot more clarity come the 6th. You still have a lot of work to be done. You have to practice those things. It's not enough to just have the idea, but you're slowly but surely implementing those things, and you can see some forward movement from the 15th onwards. Okay, then we have an opposition between the Sun and Neptune. So the Sun is in Virgo, Neptune is in Pisces, and Neptune is retrograde. This occurs on the 19th. Now, Pisces falls in your 3rd house of communication, short distance travel, and Virgo falls in that long distance travel, and foreign contacts as well. So when we have an opposition, it talks about finding balance. You must listen to other people, but you must also trust your own thoughts. And if your thoughts are inhibiting you in expressing yourself, then it's time to delve a little bit deeper and see what actually makes what resonates most with you. Actually, I think that's the best word. What resonates most with you, because Neptune is more feeling oriented, okay, and so is Pisces. It's more intuitive and emotional. Meanwhile, Virgo is quite practical, and if it's not making sense in practice, then it doesn't make any difference of what the intuition is saying. That would be the Virgo side of the story. So now when we have this opposition, both of them need to get along, and they need to have a moderation. You can't be overly practical, you can't be overly emotional. So there needs to be a fine line that must be maintained. Now, this aspect itself can represent some fogginess of like you have clarity, but then you don't really, sort of like a partly cloudy kind of day. Like you have some clouds right underneath the sun, but the sunbeams are still falling through. So you can't see everything in its full brilliance yet, but you see some sense of direction. Okay. So move with what you have, but trust your intuition. If you get some, strong nudge to not go somewhere or not do something, or vice versa, to go somewhere and to do something. Okay, now let's talk about the Venus squares. Venus squares with Jupiter and Uranus. Throughout this month, it forms 2 squares. So the square with Jupiter is going to be on the 17th. Venus is still in shadow phase at this point in time, and Jupiter is in retrograde. Both of them are benefics, both of them are in fixed signs, but it seems as though both of them have opposite directions of motion. So this indicates that there might be an assumption that we make that what we are desiring may not be possible because either the bigger themes of life have not yet sorted out, or we have some other things to be taken care of, or it's our belief systems that hold ourselves back. So it's important to move beyond that initial self-doubt, because there is a lot of opportunity. Both of them are benefics, right? So regardless of whether they're direct or retrograde, they're still working in favor of us, and they're trying to bring in opportunities no matter what. But with Jupiter retrograde, it can mean that we have the resources that we need to make our dreams happen. Okay, we just feel like we don't, or we don't yet see it in the form that we are looking for. And this square can be this force of action, of work with what you have right now, right here in this particular moment. Instead of waiting for a future timeline, work with what you have right now. And that would be the best way to utilize this energy. So tuning inward as well can help you out, meditating a little bit, spending some time with yourself, that can be quite beneficial. Because again, Leo falls in that 8th house, and it's quite private and internal. You might not share this part of yourself with just about anyone. Perhaps some committed partners or some intimate connections and bonds that you have, they are aware of this Leo side of you. But apart from that, the public in general is not at all aware of this. And sometimes even we are not aware of this part because it's so subconscious. We are driven by certain instincts and desires that we don't even know have affected us so much. Okay, so when there is this square aspect, it really brings into focus of, okay, this is how I hurt myself, this is how I have stopped myself, and this is where my hidden energy and hidden power is, and I'm just not utilizing this particular strength as much, because that 8th house not only governs your fears and insecurities, but also your greatest skills and talents that have been suppressed in the past. So any part of you that has been suppressed, any light that is suppressed, it is likely to come back out, because there is a need to express it. So it can be very, very beneficial, as you can already recognize. There's so much potential here, if only in the initial part we let go of a certain assumption that we're not good enough, or that we don't have enough. All right, now the next square that Venus makes is with Uranus, and that's also in Taurus, also retrograde, but Venus is fully out of shadow and she's in full strength. And what is so interesting about this one is that, well, 2 things. One, it is Libra season at this point, and Libra is ruled by Venus, and because she is super strong, it's going to be working in her favor, or the focus that we have in life at this point in time. In your case, that's going to be your career ambitions, goals. That is going to be benefited by Venus's cycle, and she is also feeling pretty strong because the sun is blessing her and everything. There can be some opportunities that come in, and you are alert enough, or you are aware enough of your desires, what you're capable of, what your internal power and skills are, that you can take advantage of these opportunities. Another interesting thing is that Venus and Uranus have been squaring since July. Okay, and Venus has first been in shadow phase, then she has been in retrograde. She's not been in the mood to deal with Uranus's radical changes and spontaneous breakthroughs or whatever. But now finally she's in a position where she can make sense of the changes that have happened before. She can turn them around so that they are more constructive rather than destructive in any case. And Uranus, meanwhile, is retrograde, so he's not contesting Venus's method in any way. And Venus also rules Taurus. So with Uranus a little bit in the back seat, she is now able to call the shots. And she's like, remember that unexpected expense that I had in the month of July? Well, I'm going to do something unexpected now that is going to bring in more income and may put me in a more, advantageous position compared to the month of July or August. Okay, so there can be sudden breakthroughs, but it can be more so something that you create out of what you have at this time. All right. Now, some small little details to mention. The sun moves from Virgo into Libra season on the 23rd. That is going to be the autumnal equinox as well. So moving from this point, this is going to be more of a wisdom phase, surrender, acceptance, transformation, as well as the philosophy part of the year. And we also have a drum roll throughout this month for the eclipse season that's going to occur in October. We have 2 eclipses in that month, so it's going to be this month of September is going to have some background trends. It can be more emotional or thoughtful, okay? But it's going to have this trend of, some certain changes or fateful events that's coming in. So observe where you feel most stuck and in need of divine intervention or in need of a breakthrough that is beyond your control, because that's where certain shifts and changes could happen. Now, finally, let's talk about the moon cycles. We have a new moon in the sign of Virgo, which trines with Uranus in the sign of Taurus, and Uranus is retrograde. This occurs on the 15th, along with Mercury in Virgo going direct. So lots of earthiness going on here, and also quite beneficial. This is a pivotal day, and I will not be surprised if so many people get new information of some sort. This can be a new job offer connected with your research industry or, any educational institution that you're part of. It can be that you're getting certain recognition or some messages of compliment or something connected with import-export businesses or any publishing you're doing. You can get some modes of encouragement, essentially. Also can talk about turnarounds connected with immigration and visa as well. Now we have a full moon in Aries. That's on the 29th. It is occurring parallel to that Venus square with Uranus that we just talked about, and this is a fiery full moon, which is going to kind of leave you quite inspired. Now, this affects your 4th house of home, family, ancestry, as well as your internal needs of emotion and security. So you might be feeling more connected with your ancestral line around this time, or you are looking at, what your family has done, how it has affected your entire lineage, what that means for your personal legacy, or any endeavors that you're starting at this time. Now, full moon kind of hype things up, so watch out for like suppressed anger or aggression. It doesn't mean, when I say watch out, it doesn't mean like worry about it and run away from it. Okay, that's not what I mean, but just notice it when it comes up, because there might be something that needs to be resolved here or understood, accepted, something of that sort. Because full moons, they are a time of completion or a time of pivot. Like this, what I've been doing for this 6 months is not working for me, so I need to make a big change right now in order to retrace my steps or to bring myself into focus again. Okay, so in either case, there is going to be lots of clarity during the full moon, and I would not be surprised if you take matters into your own hands and shift your trajectory in some regard. Now, Aries and Libra, both of them are squaring up with Capricorn energy. Both of them are cardinal signs, just as you. So it can be that you're feeling a little bit torn between the balancing of your public goals as well as personal goals, or it can be about your career as well as family, work-life balance, and things like that. Can come up here, but because you are benefited by all of these earth sign triggers, you are fully able to cope with it, and you are actually figuring out some creative ways to deal with any situations that come up. This can also indicate that you're doing some work connected with immigration visa. Let's say I'm just taking that as an example, and that is going to affect where you work and where your family lives and how you're going to balance these things out as well. Okay, either case, that full moon is going to bring in some openings and clarity and all of that. Okay. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for being here. I really hope you enjoyed and that the messages help you out throughout the month. Stay tuned for the tarot reading as well. I will be uploading them soon. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever that's up. And if you enjoyed the reading, please do like and comment your thoughts if you have any. It will be really lovely to hear back from you, and it really helps the channel grow as well. I will see you some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.